Today is May 31st, 2026, marking day 92 of the Iran and United States standoff. Somewhere in the Gulf of Oman, the cargo ship MV Leon Star drifts lifeless, its engine destroyed, powerless in one of the world's most watched maritime zones. The Leon Star did not stop because of a mechanical fault or a storm. It stopped because the captain received 23 separate warnings from the United States military. Each warning stated the ship was violating the naval blockade of Iran, heading directly toward an Iranian port, and had to alter course immediately. 23 documented alerts over the course of a single night left no room for doubt. The crew ignored them all. They clearly operated under orders assuming the United States would not actually strike a commercial vessel. They believed the blockade was performative, that past shows of American military presence were theater, and that defiance would be met with hesitation. That calculation proved fatal. A single AGM-114 Hellfire missile struck the Leon Star's engine room. The strike was precise, not a warning shot, not a superficial hit. The missile hit the mechanical heart of the 232-foot cargo ship. Leaving it adrift and non-operational, the Leon Star now exists as a disabled vessel in operational terms. This is the fifth commercial ship rendered inoperable since the blockade began. 116 others were intercepted, warned, and redirected without kinetic force. That is, the enforcement record of a blockade Iran has called illegal and unsustainable for 92 consecutive days, while losing $500 million daily in oil export revenue. The Leon Star demonstrates clearly that the United States is not bluffing. 23 warnings, 1 Hellfire, engine room destroyed, vessel drifting. The surveillance and targeting operation tracking the Leon Star began long before any warning was issued. The MQ-4C Triton, the Navy's maritime surveillance variant of the RQ-4 Global Hawk drone, monitored the vessel. Operating above 50,000 feet, the Triton's ANZPY-3 multifunction radar can cover over 2.7 million square miles of ocean simultaneously. For reference, the entire land area of the United States is about 3.8 million square miles. A single Triton flight can observe roughly 70% of that area and ocean surface at once. The radar distinguishes vessel types regardless of weather or sea conditions. The Leon Star was identified, named, classified, and tracked from Karachi Harbor onward. Every course change, speed adjustment, and communication from the ship was logged in a continuously updating targeting database. The F-35C Lightning II provided the second layer of targeting. Using its AN/APG-81 radar in maritime mode, the fighter fused multiple sensor inputs to generate a precise situational picture. In maritime targeting mode, the F-35C could identify exact points on the vessel at ranges far beyond any detection capability the cargo ship possessed. The aircraft effectively acted as a targeting quarterback, converting Triton's broad surveillance into a precise strike solution. The Hellfire hit the engine room, not the deck, not the bridge, not the cargo hold. The MV Leon Star incident is not an isolated act, but the operational expression of a highly sophisticated blockade. The United States has enforced this maritime barrier since February 28, 2026, designed to intercept, warn, and if needed, disable vessels bound for Iranian ports while remaining in international waters. The blockade directly restricts Iran's oil exports, which fund the IRGC, its military operations, internal security, international proxies, and basic governance. Each of the 116 vessels turned back represents lost cargo and oil shipments, adding billions of dollars to the cumulative economic impact beyond the daily $500 million in blocked oil revenue. The 5 disabled vessels, including the Leon Star, serve as proof of enforcement credibility. Any captain weighing the risk of challenging the blockade now knows the consequence. Defiance, after 23 warnings, results in a missile strike to the engine room. The Triton provided strategic coverage across the Gulf of Oman, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Persian Gulf. It recorded every transit detail for over 90 days. The F-35C transformed the strategic intelligence into operational precision. Together, they ensured that from Karachi to the Gulf of Oman, the Leon Star was continuously observed, every move noted, every warning transmitted, and ultimately, the strike executed with surgical accuracy. Disabling a ship's propulsion stops it without sinking the vessel, without harming the crew, and without causing the environmental damage a sinking cargo ship would create. Hitting the engine room specifically on a moving 232-foot vessel is possible because of the F-35C's fused sensor suite, which processes the targeting solution and passes it to whoever launched the Hellfire. The underwater layer of surveillance is equally critical. Controlling the blockade above and below the water validates the claim that the United States controls all 3 dimensions of this environment. The DARPA Manta Array is Northrop Grumman's extra-large autonomous undersea vehicle, developed to provide persistent undersea monitoring in contested maritime areas. The Manta Ray can operate for weeks or months underwater, hibernating on the ocean floor when not active, then awakening to conduct surveillance, gather intelligence, and potentially deliver strike payloads. Its shape mimics a manta ray, optimized for efficient underwater movement. While its presence in the Gulf of Oman is unconfirmed, its capabilities match the requirements for sustained undersea monitoring against Iranian submarine activity and mine-laying operations that surface assets cannot fully track. Lockheed Martin introduced an additional system in February 2026 called the Lamprey, a fully autonomous submersible that can hitch a ride on a host vessel and then deploy independently. It conducts surveillance in areas inaccessible to surface assets. The Lamprey can be transported aboard a destroyer, submarine, or other platforms, then released to navigate, sense, and communicate autonomously. Combined, the Triton provides 2.7 million square mile radar coverage from 50,000 feet. The F-35C designates precise targeting at standoff range. The manta ray monitors the seafloor and subsurface, and the Lamprey provides close-range autonomous undersea observation. Together, these systems create surveillance coverage from the seafloor to the stratosphere. No depth, altitude, weather condition, time of day, or mission control allows a vessel to transit these waters without being observed, tracked, classified, and, if necessary, engaged. The most likely shooters for the Leon Star are analyzed based on confirmed presence in the area. The highest probability is the AH-1Z Viper attack helicopter operated by the United States Marine Corps. A Viper was photographed conducting maritime operations in the CENTCOM area on May 17th, exactly 2 weeks before the Leon Star incident. The Viper is armed with up to 16 Hellfire missiles, capable of engaging multiple targets in one mission. Operating from amphibious assault ships in the Gulf of Oman, Marine Corps crews have conducted continuous maritime patrols. Its flare targeting pod can designate a specific compartment inside a moving ship's hull at standoff range, delivering the Hellfire precisely to the engine room. The AH-64 Apache is another candidate. It has flown armed patrols over the Gulf of Oman since April 2026, confirmed by multiple photos. Equipped with Hellfire missiles and longbow radar, the Apache can detect and engage targets in day, night, and adverse weather. The MQ-9 Reaper drone is the third candidate. It has operated continuously over the Strait of Hormuz and Gulf of Oman throughout the conflict, carrying AGM-114 Hellfire missiles for both surveillance and strike missions. With a 27-hour loiter capability at 50,000 feet, the Reaper can track a ship from its first appearance until engagement without any handoff. A Reaper monitoring the Leon Star from Karachi could have executed the engine room strike independently. The AGM-114 Hellfire missile is a laser or radar-guided precision air-to-ground weapon originally developed for anti-armor use. Its name derived from helicopter-launched fire-and-forget operations. The missile weighs approximately 100 pounds and carries an 18-pound warhead in the basic variant with heavier options available. Its guidance system allows the firing platform to designate a specific point with a laser, and the missile homes in with extreme accuracy. The small warhead and precision make it ideal for targeting specific objectives with minimal collateral damage. Targeting the engine room disables the ship without sinking it. The hull remains intact, cargo stays aboard, and the crew survives. The ship remains where it is until towed or boarded. This is the most controlled, proportionate, and legally defensible method to enforce the blockade on a commercial vessel. One Hellfire disables the engine, leaving the vessel drifting, the crew alive, cargo intact, and delivers a clear message. 23 warnings followed by non-compliance results in precise kinetic enforcement. Turning to the F-110 ballistic missile strike on Ali al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait, this event, less reported than the Leon Star story, had direct operational impact. Iran fired a Fatah 110 short-range ballistic missile at Ali al-Salem, home to the 386th Air Expeditionary Wing, a critical American logistics hub. Kuwaiti air defense successfully intercepted the missile, but debris continued along a ballistic path. Falling fragments wounded approximately 5 Americans, including active duty personnel and contractors, destroyed one MQ-9 Reaper on the ground, and severely damaged a second. Each Reaper cost about $30 million, meaning this event caused $60 million in losses to American surveillance and strike capacity. General Atomics, the MQ-9 manufacturer, halted primary production last year to transition to a more advanced successor. Damaged Reapers cannot simply be replaced from the current production line, which has already shifted to the next platform. More than 20 MQ-9 Reapers have reportedly been shot down or destroyed during the 92 days of this conflict. As a result, the Reaper force operating in theater is significantly smaller than it was before hostilities began. Replacement capacity is also limited because production has already shifted to a successor platform. This matters because the MQ-9 has provided the persistent surveillance and strike presence used to monitor IRGC mine-laying boats, fast attack craft, and drone launch activities throughout the conflict. With fewer Reapers available, continuous coverage over areas of highest IRGC activity becomes more difficult. That reduction in surveillance capacity is exactly the effect Iranian military operations seek to achieve. The most significant transition currently underway in the American unmanned aviation portfolio involves the Anduril Fury drone. Fury is not simply a newer version of the Reaper performing the same mission with improved specifications. It belongs to an entirely different category of aircraft and follows a different operational concept. The Fury is a collaborative combat aircraft. It is built to function alongside crewed fighters as a wingman, rather than operating independently. The platform can accompany an F-35, an F-15EE, an F-22, or eventually the F-47 sixth-generation fighter. Instead of acting as a separate asset, it becomes part of the manned aircraft's tactical formation. The drone carries its own weapons, sensors, and electronic warfare systems. Through autonomous capabilities, it conducts targeting and engagement actions while remaining under the direction of the pilot leading the formation. One capability makes Fury especially relevant to the present conflict. If all missiles and bombs are expended during a mission and new targets appear that require immediate engagement, the aircraft itself can be directed into a terminal attack. In that situation, the drone becomes the weapon. This is not intended as the primary employment method. It serves as an option of last resort when no conventional weapons remain and the tactical circumstances do not allow delay. Even so, the existence of that capability changes how adversaries must evaluate the threat. An opponent can never know with certainty that a Fury lacking missiles is no longer dangerous. The aircraft always retains one potential engagement regardless of its remaining weapons inventory. This reflects the Wolfpack concept applied to autonomous combat aviation. Every member contributes throughout the mission. The loss of any aircraft reduces the formation's overall combat capacity, making every platform valuable beyond its financial cost. Public statements from Iranian officials provide another important part of the picture. Mohsen Rezaei, senior advisor to Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei and former IRGC commander currently overseeing Iran's public communication strategy, posted on X that the United States was abandoning diplomacy for a third time. He accused Washington of maintaining the naval blockade while imposing excessive conditions. He described the American approach as a violation of good faith negotiations. Those remarks concern the same blockade that has remained in place since February 28, 2026. It is also the same blockade that existed when Iran accepted the ceasefire on April 8th. The structure of the blockade has not changed since that agreement. CENTCOM has continued conducting self-defense strikes against Iranian military assets considered threats to American forces, but the overall blockade framework remains unchanged from the first day of operations. Rezaei's criticism focuses on the continued enforcement of that blockade. The demands he references are Bassan's 3 red lines: surrender the uranium, abandon the nuclear weapons program, and open the strait for unrestricted navigation. Those conditions were publicly announced from the White House and have remained consistent. They were not introduced after any previous understanding. They are the same requirements that have been presented from the beginning. One of the most important developments in the diplomatic process received limited attention. President Trump stated in a recent interview that Iran agreed not only to refrain from building nuclear weapons, but also to refrain from purchasing them. This represents a notable development. Throughout the conflict, Iran maintained that it was not pursuing construction of nuclear weapons, despite concerns raised by its enriched uranium stockpile. The additional commitment not to purchase such weapons addresses concerns that Iran could attempt to acquire a complete device from another state actor even if domestic enrichment activities were restricted. Including both commitments suggests that the proposed framework extends beyond a simple enrichment moratorium. It indicates that negotiators addressed both acquisition pathways and domestic production pathways. The development represents progress, although no final agreement has been signed and no uranium has yet been disposed of. Attention also shifted to southern Lebanon, where Israeli forces seized the 900-year-old Beaufort Castle and the strategic ridgeline surrounding it. This is the same fortress last occupied by the IDF during the First Lebanon War in 1982. Israeli Defense Minister Katz confirmed that troops will remain permanently as part of a new Israeli security zone in southern Lebanon. The castle occupies elevated terrain with observation and fire control advantages across a significant portion of southern Lebanon, including routes leading toward northern Israeli communities. For the IRGC and Iranian negotiators, the permanent occupation of Beaufort Castle creates an additional complication. Iran has sought to include the cessation of Israeli military operations in Lebanon within the broader regional framework connected to the Iran Deal Memorandum of Understanding. Israel's decision to retain the castle while negotiations continue serves as its response to that demand. The Lebanon front remains a separate conflict with separate objectives being pursued independently of negotiations in Doha. Iran cannot exchange Hormuz-related concessions for outcomes in Lebanon because Israel is not a participant in the Hormuz Agreement and is not negotiating through the channel used by Araghchi. Another major development occurred in Romania. A Russian Shahed-type drone entered Romanian airspace and struck a residential apartment building in Galati, injuring 2 people. This marked the 28th drone incursion into Romanian airspace since the conflict began. The previous 27 incidents did not produce physical damage on Romanian territory. The 28th did. NATO air defense measures failed to stop this specific drone, despite lessons that could have been drawn from the earlier incursions. The American ambassador to NATO responded by stating that the alliance would defend every inch of NATO territory. Russia's response came from former President Medvedev, who told European countries to remain silent and described them as direct participants in the war. The operational lesson from this event is that existing NATO counter-drone procedures along the Romanian border contain a vulnerability that has now resulted in damage to civilian infrastructure within a NATO member state. Addressing that vulnerability would require deployment of high-powered microwave area denial systems and acoustic sensor networks similar to those used under Ukraine's Sky Fortress initiative at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia and in border regions, exposed to drone drift originating from operations in the Ukrainian theater against Russian logistics targets. The strategic picture on May 31st, 2026 is clear. The MV Leon Star remains adrift in the Gulf of Oman after 23 warnings, and one Hellfire missile demonstrated that the blockade is being enforced. 5 vessels have been disabled, 116 have turned back. $500 million per day continues to be denied to IRGC-linked revenue streams through ships unable to reach Iranian ports and oil unable to depart Karg Island. The Fata 110 strike wounded 5 Americans and eliminated $30 million worth of MQ-9 capability in Kuwait. Rezaieh continues describing the blockade as a betrayal of diplomacy on X, while CENTCOM continues enforcing it. President Trump states that Iran agreed not to build or buy nuclear weapons. Beaufort Castle remains under permanent Israeli control. A Russian drone has struck an apartment building inside a NATO member state. At the same time, Iranian authorities face mounting internal pressures involving unpaid personnel, police absences, overloaded storage facilities on Karg Island, a rapidly weakening currency, and a supreme leader reportedly communicating through couriers from an underground bunker. No final agreement has been signed. The Leon Star believed the blockade was a bluff. After 23 warnings and 1 Hellfire strike, the vessel is drifting. Iran has now spent 92 days being told that the blockade remains in place until an agreement is certified and signed. The warnings continue to diminish. The Hellfire missiles do not. If you found this breakdown valuable, follow for more in-depth coverage of military, political, and geopolitical developments shaping events around the world. Please leave your thoughts about this content in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.